Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. My name's Michelle. If we've never met in person, I appreciate you joining me here on this platform. Today I'm going to introduce Surya Namaskar for everybody. So Surya Namaskar is a traditional sun salutation. These are the foundational warm-up exercises for the Ashtanga yoga practice. The Ashtanga primary series, which is the beginning series, is considered yoga chikitsa, which is yoga therapy. So this is a set sequence that you do in order. There's a specific breath orientation. But right now, today, we're just going to focus on understanding the linking of the breath in Surya Namaskar A, maybe B if we get to it, and making modifications for folks who find some of the transitions in Surya Namaskar to be challenging, especially to keep up with in your breath. So the most important aspect of Surya Namaskar and the entire Ashtanga practice, in my opinion, is the linking of the ujjayi breath. So ujjayi breath is a breathing technique where you are constricting the airway right up here underneath, maybe just behind your lymph nodes, where your throat kind of enters the nasal passageway as well as the throat. And then you're constricting that to make it makes sort of like an oceanic noise. So you might be able to hear it here if I demonstrate. So you're making the inhalation and the exhalation as equal as possible. And the way that you do that is by controlling the rate at which the air leaves your nose. It's always supposed to be through the nose, mouth stays closed. And that controls the rate of the breath. So think of your throat as a lock, and it's basically restricting, sort of like a dam, the amount of air that can flow through there at any given time, and you always want it to be a consistent amount of air that's flowing through there. The second aspect of that is that as you engage the ujjayi breath, you're also going to want to be drawing in the abdomen and the deep navel, and this is Mula Bandha. So this is, as is ujjayi breath, almost a topic all on its own, but you want to think about drawing that navel in, and you want to think about how these two connect. So for a moment, just try and take an upright seated position and the ujjayi breath. And especially on the exhale, think about sending that empty space that you're creating down into the navel, and then lifting the navel up to meet that and locking it right in together there. And that's your Mula Bandha connection. Try that one more time. Okay, so the strong ujjayi breath is really all you need to get started with your sun salutation warm-up. So traditionally, you do 5 Surya Namaskar A and 5 Surya Namaskar B. If you're a beginner, you might warm up with just 3 and 3. It is a very vigorous warm-up. Think of it as boiling water before you put on the rice to cook. So essentially this is always the warm-up that you're going to use. It's intended to develop a lot of heat. And essentially you complete the warm-up and then you can continue on with the series, either primary, intermediate, so on and so forth. And that's sort of like you are bringing your body temperature up to a certain level, and then through your ujjayi breath and your asanas, you are using that breath to conduct the therapy in your body, at least as far as the primary series is concerned. So you're bringing yourself up to a boil, and then you're sort of putting a lid on it and maintaining that to bring your body to the proper condition. So with that, we're going to get started. So Surya Namaskar A, in the very beginning of the practice, I'm going to do one all the way through as a demonstration of the flow with the breath, and then I'll break it down with modifications for folks as far as like flexibility and mobility and things like that are concerned. So it's inhale up, exhale lower, inhale arching forward, exhale step the feet back, elbows hug in, stay elevated. Inhale, press the tops of the feet down. Exhale, lift the hips, downward facing dog. Index fingers point forward, chin tucks. Breathing here, 5 breaths. On your 5th exhale, you inhale to look forward, step the feet up, exhale to fold. Inhale, straight legs, straight arms. Exhale, hands come to the side, salutation. That's one Surya Namaskar there. So, inhale up, can look like a couple of different things. But in the Ashtanga practice, you really want to focus on efficiency. So you're not trying to make large, extravagant movements. You're trying to make movements that are comfortable and efficient for your body. So for inhaling, the arms up and overhead, you want to try and bring them up in line with the body. Ideally, palms touch. If you feel that you can't keep the arms straight as the palms touch, maybe their elbows are bending, that's okay. But again, as much as possible, arms stay straight, palms press together. The chest reaches up, but there's not really an appreciable back bend here. You really do want to try, you might drop the neck back to gaze at the arms, but you want to keep a pretty straight alignment with the legs. So you inhale up, exhale lower. This is going to be the first place where modification is really important. Even for me, getting started early in the morning, especially if I'm practicing outside or it's cold, my hamstrings are not ready for a straight leg forward fold. So from the inhale overhead, exhale, hands come apart, knees can bend. Knees can bend until the belly comes to meet them. So wherever that is for you is fine. What's important is that the palms come to the floor. So even if you really have to bend your knees to do that, that's okay. Or getting blocks to press your hands on might also be a really excellent tool. As much as possible, meeting your legs where they're at, a slight bend in the knees, or a large bend in the knees. If it's warm or you've already warmed up, you might be able to come all the way down, maybe with just a slight bend in the knees. Palms press down on the mat wherever your knees are. That's the important lock. You really need the leverage of pressing the palms down, because then you come inhale, and as much as possible, the inhale is where you're going to send your legs out straight. You're lifting the chest up and forward, pressing the palms down, arching through the back. The belly is still definitely in contact with the thighs. And then the exhale down, you can step back 1 foot, you can step back 2 feet, and then the elbows hug in to the side. You want your elbows to be hugging in almost as if there's a net there supporting you. And then it's an inhale, lifting up. The thighs can come down, but you want the tops of the feet actively pressing into the mat. Gaze comes up, and then it's an exhale. Turn the toes under, lift the hips, come back to downward facing dog. So the next place where there's going to be a lot of room for modification is downward facing dog. If your wrists are really stiff, you are going to benefit from having blocks on your wrists to alleviate the dramatic angle. If your hamstrings are tight, heels are going to come up off the floor, knees are going to bend. But what's really important is that your hips stay lifted regardless of where your knees and heels are or palms, and your chin is tucked. So typically it might look like this. Your chin is tucked, your gaze is back up towards your navel. Your thighs are lifting, your knees are lifting, your palms are pressed really firmly into the mat. Maybe your heels are lifted. Regardless of where your legs are, your sit bones are reaching up towards the ceiling. Try your best not to press really far into the shoulders. That's really tempting in this posture. It's not necessarily in the practice of the traditional Ashtanga. So you actually want to wrap the shoulders down and around. And you want to make space here actually for your chin to tuck so you can look back towards your navel. Because if your shoulders are way down here, it's really difficult to actually have that alignment where you see your navel. So you want to wrap the shoulders, create space, breathing. It's 5 breaths. And then it's an inhale, step forward. Again, knees can bend, but the palms press down. It's really important to commit to keeping the palms in place for a lot of these vinyasas. And then it's an exhale to fold deeper. The crown of the head reaches for the top of the feet. And again, this is where the knees can bend. And then it's an inhale, palms come off the floor, legs straighten, arms straighten, reaching up overhead. Exhale, salutation. So let's try that in a little bit more real time. Inhale, overhead. Exhale, fold. Bending in the knees, belly touches the thighs, palms press down. Inhale, straighten and lift, gazes forward. Exhale, step back, elbows hug in, gazes forward. Inhale, tops of the feet press down. Exhale, downward facing dog. Chin tucks, gaze back towards the navel. Index finger points forward, 5 breaths. Inhale, gaze comes forward, bending through the knees, step the feet together. Exhale, fold. Inhale, straight legs, straight arms, come all the way up. Exhale. So that's Surya Namaskar A. Traditionally, we would do either 3 to 5 of those in succession before moving on to Surya Namaskar B. So now might be a great time to pause the video and try with your own breath on the inhalation and exhalation to do at least 3 to 5 of those Surya Namaskar A in succession. Next would be Surya Namaskar B. So there's a few more movements involved with this one, but it's based off a similar architecture as far as the movements. Surya Namaskar B, you're going to inhale, the knees bend, the toes stay just in front, hips lower, arms come overhead. Palms press together if possible. Exhale, lowering down. Belly comes to thigh, forehead comes to the shin. And again, you can either step back or jump back, elbows hug in. Inhale to arch. Exhale to lift. Inhale, right foot steps forward, left foot turns out. It's an inhale all the way up. Exhale, all the way down. Elbows hug in. Inhale to arch. Exhale to lift. Inhale, step the left foot all the way through. Right foot comes down, all the way up. Exhale, all the way down. Inhale, exhale. So again, if you're feeling like these movements are happening really quickly, you want to try and control your breath more with the throat and the ujjayi. You want to slow everything down as much as possible. It's an inhale to look forward. Exhale to fold. Inhale, knees bend. Palms overhead. Exhale, straighten. Palms on the side. Salutation. So, some of the typical variations, modifications that would be really useful for Surya Namaskar. The palms in the Utkatasana as you open. Requires a lot of upper back mobility to be able to clasp the hands while in that squat. So more realistically, you can keep the palms separated. But again, you want to be just dropping those shoulders back, and the farther down you can drop them, the easier it'll be to make that space. And then again, on the exhale, keep bending at the knees. The most important thing is that the palms come down and you make that connection next to the feet. Because it's an inhale to lift and look forward, and then an exhale to step back. And then you want to make sure the easiest way to get out of breath on these lunges is to not complete this part of the breath. So you really want to make sure you get your exhale all the way back to the gazing in the navel. Then draw the right foot through all the way up. Exhale all the way down. Lifting, finishing the exhale. Inhale, stepping all the way through. Exhale, all the way down. And again, if you're starting to feel that you are losing integrity in any of these postures, definitely bringing the knees down, especially in the chaturanga or in the transition to the downward facing dog. Super important. Make sure you're always supporting your lower back. So yes, again, you can either come to your traditional downward facing dog for these 5 breaths, or if you're finding the warm-up to be sufficiently vigorous, you can also take some time in a child's pose. So that's a brief introduction to Surya Namaskar A and B. 3 sets of 3 or 5 sets of 5 are the traditional warm-up for those. Again, they are a very vigorous warm-up, but you are attempting to essentially bring your body up to a certain working temperature so that the therapeutic effects of the postures are more effective on internal organs and tissues and things like that. And essentially the way to make the warm-up less taxing is by controlling the breath and by slowing the movements down. So if you feel like the movements are happening too quickly, it means you need to be completing the breath with a little bit more control, and make sure that you are fully inhaling and exhaling through each of the movements and matching the movements to your breath and not necessarily the other way around. And if you are new to doing this as a traditional warm-up, then certainly taking a few extra breaths in downward facing dog or in a child's pose might be really useful to you. But again, the easiest way to make that exercise more accessible is just to make sure that you're slowing the breath down as much as possible and slowing the movements down along with that. Again, if you are looking for more information on beginner Ashtanga yoga, especially in these next coming months of October and November, reach out to the Yoga Vermont community. You can find them online. They have tons of really great virtual offerings, much more in-depth discussions about the warm-up, the Surya Namaskar, and different modifications that we can make for them to be accessible to everybody, because the practice is definitely intended to be accessible for everybody. If you're local to the Burlington, Vermont area, we are here at the Inner Space Studio. If you are interested in developing a personal practice, definitely reach out to me, or if you have any questions about that, I'm definitely available. So thanks so much for joining me for Surya Namaskar for everybody. And of course, I hope you were able to glean something from that practice, and thanks so much.